Good evening. I'll call to order this meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Redevelopment Agency. And we'll start with a roll call.
Councilmember Savage.
Here.
Councilmember Sparks.
Here.
Councilmember Harvey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lemus.
Here.
Mayor Ford.
Here. Thanks. So that'll bring us to approval of minutes and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and or adopted under this agenda. We have one set of minutes to approve from our last meeting on September 23rd. Were there any corrections noted by council members or staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll take public comment on the approval of the minutes. Let's start in the room. Anybody wishing to make comment? All right, let's move to Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to make a public comment on this item. Seeing no hands, Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right, thanks. And today I'm going to remember to call for a motion.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries unanimously. So that brings us to proclamations, and we have one proclamation tonight, which I have the honor of reading. This is a proclamation of the City of Cotati in support of North Bay Zero Waste Week, October 11th through 18th, 2025. And I'll first ask if there are any public comment on, if there's any public comment on the proclamation. So let's start with Zoom this time.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand icon. Seeing no hands on Zoom, Mayor Ford.
Great. And in the room, any public comment? Okay, that'll close public comment on the proclamation. So usually we invite somebody to receive the proclamation and come up and say a few words, but since the Executive Director of Zero Waste Sonoma, Leslie Lukash, is here tonight and she's giving a presentation immediately following this, I'll invite her to come on up, I'll read the proclamation, and we'll go straight into her presentation. So come on up while I read this if you would. And thank you for being here tonight for this. So this is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Cotati in support of North Bay Zero Waste Week, October 11th through 18th, 2025. Whereas the City of Cotati has assumed a leadership role by setting zero waste as a goal and adopting a zero waste resolution on September 10th, 2019 that set a goal of zero waste by 2030. And whereas each year, Zero Waste Sonoma and community partners host a one-day zero waste symposium as a local opportunity for industry and the public to gain insight on zero waste topics and trends, share ideas, and network. And whereas this year, Zero Waste Sonoma has collaborated with North Bay groups and volunteers to expand the community event for the entire week in October, aimed at educating and empowering various sectors of the public to act towards zero waste. And whereas the City of Cotati, along with other organizations, will be hosting zero waste events throughout the week of October 11th to 18th. Now therefore be it proclaimed on this day of October 14th, 2025, the City Council of the City of Cotati does hereby proclaim October 11th through 18th, 2025, Zero Waste Week in the City of Cotati. So I invite you to give your presentation. If it's okay with you, after your presentation, we'd like to get a picture when we present proclamations to people. So we'll come join you down there and take a picture.
Perfect. That sounds wonderful.
Great. So this is taking us to agenda item 4, presentations, and this is the Zero Waste Sonoma update with Leslie Lukash.
Yes, and next slide. So as you know, I'm Leslie Lukash, Executive Director of Zero Waste Sonoma. And for those who may not know, Zero Waste Sonoma is a joint powers authority. We were formed in 1992 due to state legislation called AB 939, which required every city in the state to recycle by 50% by the year 2000. So a joint powers authority was formed. We represent all 10 jurisdictions to meet that mandate, as well as many various state legislations that have come down the pipe since that time. So our board is a representative from each of the 10 jurisdictions here. And what we do is we do that compliance. We also do outreach and education. We manage household hazardous waste, as well as your residential green bins. Those are the materials that we manage. Next. Our mission is to empower personal action in waste reduction and materials management by implementing practical solutions to protect our natural resources. Next. So our website is one of our biggest tools to do outreach to the public. We have had over 460 residents of Cotati use our website this last year in 2024. One of the nice tools of this website is questions we receive is, how do I recycle this, or what do I do with that? So right on the front page of our website, you just type in your product and it tells you where to go. Next. In conjunction with that, we also print a zero waste guide, and that is at city halls, grocery stores, public events. This is the guide that we also use to educate the public on how to manage their materials correctly, and there's go along with our website. Next. We also do a lot of public outreach at events. We did 7 events here in Cotati. Events may include electronics collection events, e-waste collection events. We can be at your farmers markets or those types of things, and that's another way that we connect with the community. Next. And a lot of our education is also in Spanish. We have a connection to 3 Spanish radio programs where we do continual education on those 3 radio stations. We do targeted outreach to Spanish-speaking businesses so that they're also aware of the various rules and compliance to recycling, composting throughout the community. Next. And I'm going to move on to repair fairs and fix-it clinics. So we know we can't recycle our way to zero waste. We really need to focus on reduce and reuse. And the last year or two, we've been focusing on, okay, what does that mean and how do we do that? So we partnered with a group called the Reuse Alliance, and we put on a number of repair fairs throughout the community. And what a repair fair is, if you don't know, is we have connections to fixers. A fixer is somebody who knows how to fix bikes, how to fix electronics, how to fix lamps, menders who know how to sew, and knife sharpener experts. And we bring them all together and we invite the public to come bring their products, as well as we do a clothing exchange. So they can bring clothes that they want to get rid of, and you can get free clothes, anything that you want. It's all up for grabs, as well as we can fix your items. And we're trying to instill that instead of just buying new, let's fix it first, and that these things can be fixed before getting new ones. A nice thing that we did is after that success of last year, we went before our board, and our board approved us to do an actual repair fair fix-it clinic in each of the 10 member jurisdictions. So there will be one coming to Cotati this next year. Next. I mentioned that we manage household hazardous waste. So this is the products that are underneath your sink, in your garage, oils, lights, batteries. We are a free service to the public Thursday through Saturday. They can come to the landfill off of Mitcham Road, and that's our site right there in the picture, and we'll take the products off of you and we manage it properly. We also have a reuse area where we collect items that are maybe half used or full, and people can come and they can shop our reuse for free, so they can take these products that they still have another life. We also take paints, and we can blend the paints together, and we kind of make a off-white-ish, tan-ish, a purple-ish, and a green-ish color, and that's all for free. It's free for the city. It's good for graffiti abatement, but the public can come to our site and have free paint anytime they want. Next. We also manage electronic waste, so we do a number of events throughout the community, 14 per year, and alongside that, this last year, we did 10 mattress collection events. And that's important because as we see, illegal disposal along our creeks and our roadways, a lot of times we see mattresses. So we want to make sure that we can offer a free service so that they can bring the materials to us, and we get them disassembled and the parts recycled. Next. A unique thing that we did this last year is a solar panel collection event. So solar panels are banned from the landfill, but the problem is that solar panels have a life expectancy of 25 years or so. And so now we're seeing a lot of those solar panels coming off and new solar panels coming on. And when a new company comes on, they just leave the old solar panels with the residents. So residents don't really have a way to manage this material, so we applied for a grant and we hosted 12 events, and through that we collected over 1,000 panels. We tested all the panels, and roughly 10% of those were actually reusable. So we worked with Habitat for Humanity, the Restore, and we gave those panels to them. We also worked with a couple farms who used the panels on their farms, and then as well as one high school an engineering teacher, used the photovoltaic cell to teach kids about solar panels. So next. Lastly, on HHW, we are actually in the process of building a brand-new HHW facility right off of Shiloh and the 101 freeway. We just finished the 100% design of the project, and we are going to be moving to the next phase. So this is going to be great for people who live, Santa Rosa all the way up to Cloverdale, because they really don't have easy access to the facility down at Mitcham. So this is going to be our primary site once we're done building it. Next. I just want to briefly touch base on SB 1383. If you haven't heard of that law, it's a very prescriptive law that the state put jurisdictions to be in compliance for diverting 75% of their organic material from the landfill by the year 2025. So we are in charge of making sure that your jurisdiction is in compliance with those regulations. Next. And so some of the things that we've been doing is we work closely with your hauler to make sure that businesses have a green bin behind them. We have contracted with the health inspector, the health department, to, if we need to go in and actually also from the inside, making sure that businesses are in compliance. We're working with your jurisdiction. If there's any businesses in violation, we give them a notice of violation so that they can correct their process. But really, we go through education outreach. That's like the last step. And it's rare that we have to do the NOVs because we really want to make sure that it's more of a carrot, that we're trying to help them out. Next. One of the parts of the regulations that we have to be in compliance with is getting edible food and recover it and feed it to people of need. So we applied for 4 different grants over the last couple of years, and we received over $3 million in grant funding to get the edible food. We purchased a few different trucks that you see in the picture. They're actually electric trucks too. And we partnered with the Conservation Corps North Bay in teaching them job skills on rescuing edible food. We're working with schools and just various community partners next. And with one of our grants, just to show you the impact, we rescued over 330 pounds of edible food, which would have gone to the landfill. And we get this food from bakeries, dairy farms, just produce, gleaning, meats, and we have now connections from rescuing food to getting it back out to various nonprofits. Next. We also, this last year, put out 7 compost hubs, and what a compost hub is we really just need kind of like a 10 by 10 space, and we dump about 40 cubic yards of compost, and it's free compost to residents. Your closest one is just across the street, if you didn't know that. It's been a great partnership with the ranch next door to do the compost hub, so that's been a pretty successful program, and it also helps us be in compliance with 1383. Next. We also want to work with the agricultural community, and they are also in need of compost. And so we created a 10% rebate program. So if they buy their compost and provide us their receipt, we send them a check for 10%. And so that's another way to keep that compost flowing. But compost is also a great soil amendment. It fosters carbon sequestration. It helps the soil retain water. It's great for the microorganisms. So it's just really there for soil health throughout Sonoma County. Next. The last part about compost is we have not had a compost facility in Sonoma County in a number of years. So we are working closely with the County of Sonoma, Sonoma Public Infrastructure Department to build a new compost facility just west of the runway of the airport. That could potentially be a little tricky spot with making sure that you don't attract birds next to an airport, but we have completed a 30% design of the compost facility, and it's currently going through the permitting process. And when this compost facility opens, it'll be able to process 65,000 tons of organic material, your green bin. We manage about over 100,000 tons, so it's not going to be all of the material going to this new site, but that's okay because our material goes down to Redwood Landfill at their compost facility. So, Cotati, Petaluma, that will still continue to move south, while Santa Rosa and other cities will go to this new site once it's up and running. So there's that. Next slide. One of the things we're also worked on is we passed a construction, demolition, and deconstruction recycling ordinance. This is important because a lot of C&D material still makes its way to the landfill. It's highly recyclable. It's not very conducive to a landfill because it doesn't compact. So we want to make sure that the cities are in compliance with the Cal Green standards, which require construction projects to have a 60% recycling rate. So we received a grant to buy software for all of our member jurisdictions so that when a permit is taken from the permit department to do a construction project, that company can also input data of their proof of recycling. And so we need that data to report it back to the state. So that's something that we're still working on. So we hope to come back to council with an ordinance because that is an important step to make sure that there's a level playing field for the construction industry. Next. And lastly, I'll close on Zero Waste Week. This is our 4th year doing it, and it's something that came out of Zero Waste Sonoma. And it's a concept that instead of us doing outreach and education, how about let's partner with other groups like community groups, the libraries, cleaning groups, the haulers, and it's a way for the education to come out to all other components of our community. And so this year we have 60 events on our calendar, and we've actually expanded North Bay Zero Waste Week to Marin and Napa, so they've joined along with us. We have 50 community partners who have partners, so those are just 50 groups who are organizing their own events, and everything is free to the public. And so most of the events can be found on our website, northbayzerowasteweek.org. And with that, that's the last slide, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Council questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Sparks.
Just a quick one. Thank you so much. That was really informative. I appreciate you being here. Just a question on the construction and demo slide, if it's possible to go back a couple slides to that one. There it is. Oop, there you go. Just a question about the Green Halo software. I saw it. I don't really know much about that or what that is, but I say that it's funded for 3 years, and I'm wondering, is that something that we're going to be asked to start using, and then will we have to pay for it after the 3 years? Or
We're still working those logistics out. So right now, only the County of Sonoma has launched Green Halo. They adopted it in May. So what it is, it's a platform that you can use either through your smart device and or at the permit department, where when you pull a permit, it's just one more step that you are going to check the box that you are going to comply with the Cal Green standards, which requires that 60% diversion. So when the construction project is completed and they get the dump tags and the recycling tags, that it's a way that they can take a picture of the tag and it goes up into the Green Halo system. So it's all automated. It should make it faster for the city permit department because of this automation, and that it's they can use it on a smart device. So that doing all this is many steps, so I'll have to work with the city manager and the permit department to get that going.
Vice Mayor Lemus.
Yes, I had a question about the new compost facility that's being designed over by the airport. You had said that you want to kind of keep it safe away from the birds. Is it enclosed or is it outdoors? And is there hazards like fires or anything, or is it just mainly that the birds can?
So we did actually work with the FAA, so it has been cleared that the technology that's being used is going to be safe and next to an airport. There are examples. Napa's compost facility is right next to their airport, so that was the model that we looked at to make sure that this could be done. And yes, so the receiving building is all enclosed, and then once it gets received, it gets processed in this, we call it covered aerated static piles. So the piles are covered, and the composting is happening inside of almost like a burrito type of situation.
Okay,
So
all
it's
right, thank you.
enclosed.
Thank you.
I had a question on the paint repurposing. Those colors are mixed there at the facility?
It is.
And then the citizens can pick up a gallon or two and like for graffiti abatement and that type of stuff? Okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay, great.
I want to thank you for having our ranch as one of your composting partners. That's great for us. I'm curious, with all the different jurisdictions use different waste haulers, so you must have to work with several different haulers to make sure your waste guides, recycling guides are accurate for all of them?
That's true, yes.
Okay, sounds like a challenge. Okay,
Yes.
any more, Councilmember Harvey?
No question, just a comment. I think Leslie is underselling what they do. She has a great team, and they are involved in lots of things, and they have really expanded our programs greatly. And they're a very dedicated team of individuals. And under Leslie's leadership, they've been able to take us up to the next level. So I truly appreciate all the work that you've done for all of our communities and for our board.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Harvey, because you have been one of the longest-serving board members on our board, and she's also been integral in various committees, providing advice on actually the HHW facility, compost facilities, so her institutional knowledge to our agency is extremely valuable, so thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks. Okay, so can we come take a picture with you as we present you with the proclamation?
Just stand in front of the diet or the
Okay.
speaker's podium.
Otherwise, this is in the way.
Thank you very much.
All right, smile. Beautiful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Leslie.
Thanks.
Did you see the packet for next week?
Yes, I
Or
have
for
it.
tomorrow?
It's big.
Very big.
I'll be there.
All right, and item 4B, we have Chief Veliket from the Rancho Adobe Fire District here to update us on their goings-on.
Good evening, Mayor Ford and council members. I'm happy to be here tonight. We can go ahead and start that presentation whenever you have it available. For the district, it's very exciting that we are moving into a consolidation process with Sonoma County Fire District, and I wanted to come before the council and talk about what that means exactly, what the process is, bring you up to speed on our actions to date, and then sort of what the future and what the process holds so that we can keep you, since we provide fire protection for the city, we can keep you informed. So fire district consolidation, or annexation, which is really the legal term for what we're talking about. And annexation is a legal governmental process that's regulated by LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission, and it's outlined in California state law. And the goals of LAFCO are pretty straightforward. There's 3 of them. To encourage the orderly formation of local government agencies and promote the efficient provision of public services, to preserve agricultural land and open space resources, and to promote orderly growth and discourage urban sprawl. And for the fire districts, I would go back to number 1, to promote the efficient provision of public service. That's really what we're trying to do. It's how we give the best service to the community and to the citizens. We can go ahead, next slide. And consolidation, by definition, is the action or process of making something stronger or more solid, or the action or process of combining a number of things into a single, more effective or coherent whole. And the Rancho Adobe Fire District will become part of the Sonoma County Fire District, so we will become part of that whole. And to give you a little bit of perspective on fire district consolidations, in 2015, just 10 years ago, there were about 50 fire agencies in Sonoma County that were providing a variety of level of service in not an exorbitantly populated county. Today, in 2025, we have about 16 fire agencies, including cities that are providing fire protection. So as some of you are very familiar with the consolidation process, there has been Sonoma County Fire District, which was created out of a consolidation in 2019 of 5 agencies, and then they have annexed additional since then. You have Gold Ridge Fire District, which was one of the more recent and more publicized because it was a very large consolidation of a number of fire agencies all brought together under the same leadership and guidance and operational standards. And then most recently this year has been Kenwood consolidating with Sonoma Valley Fire. So consolidation in fire districts is nothing new, certainly in this county. This county has been a leader in consolidations and really has taken that model of taking many smaller agencies and making one larger agency that's more efficient, can provide a much better operational deployment as well as continuity of operations. So next slide, please. All right, so review of services and critical needs. So for Rancho Adobe, we needed to take a close look at how we deliver service, what we do, and what we don't do, and how can we make it better. So what our critical needs are is advanced life support. That's one that you've heard that I know Councilmember Harvey has talked about on a number of different occasions is how do we bring paramedics into the district on the fire engine so that they're responding to every call that we go on and they're arriving in that 4 to 5 minute time frame. And that's one of the areas where we have not been successful in bringing paramedics into Rancho Adobe for a number of reasons, for pay, for lack of talent pool for the larger agencies, absorbing them quicker than we can bring them in, just for a variety of reasons. What we have done, however, is we have brought ambulance service, enhanced ambulance service with paramedics right into the core of Cotati that are responding with our folks each and every day in the ambulances across the street at the fire station. Another one of the critical areas that we have a need for is our depth of personnel. We have a very young department. We have 32 people on staff as firefighters at each of the various ranks. And out of those 32, we have either hired or promoted 1/3 of them each year of the last 2 years. So 2/3 of our department's been hired or promoted in the last 2 years. So that leaves quite a gap of some very senior folks and some very junior folks. And unfortunately, we now have this gap where we don't have people that are qualified to move up into the next rank of those positions. They simply don't have the tenure and they don't have the experience. So that's one of the areas. Fire prevention, plan review, inspections and development, one that I know is near and dear to the city's heart. We really have been very short-sighted when it comes to having a fire prevention bureau and fire prevention staff. I will share with you, however, that we just last month signed an agreement, a shared services agreement with Sonoma County Fire District where they will become our fire prevention bureau. So they have a fire marshal, a deputy fire marshal, 2 senior fire inspectors and a fire inspector, as well as wildland fire inspectors that go out and do the inspections for wildland fire. So with that, we've contracted with them, signed a shared services agreement. They're hiring an additional person that will be specifically for our jurisdiction currently. And as we move towards a consolidation, that Fire Prevention Bureau now rolls right over. So you have a 0 person, really you're looking at fire prevention currently, going to a 7-person Fire Prevention Bureau. So that's actually a step forward for us, which is great. Continuity of operations, another one. In any time that you have only one person in running an administration of a governmental agency, which is what we have, you're subject to that person being sick, ill, injured, taking another job, and that leaves your continuity of operations 0. We have no backup plan. So we're really a vulnerable agency and looking to consolidate with one that will bring in these areas of expertise that we really need to be beneficial for the community. Community outreach. Another one that we would really like to improve on is community outreach. We do the Halloween, we do events in Pengrove, we do events here in Cotati, but we really need to step that up for community engagement, for education of the community. We're in the schools actually this month for Fire Prevention Week, but that is another initiative that we'd like to be able to move forward. Okay, next slide. All right, so actions, you heard me mention that in 2015 there were over 50 fire agencies and that we've really whittled it down to just a few. Well, in 2015, we were browning out fire stations. We did not have the staffing to cover all 3 of our fire stations. Well, actually, we had the staffing, we didn't have the money, we couldn't pay people. Today, or in 2018, when the tax measure was passed, since then, we've had 24-hour, 7-day-a-week staffing with 3 people on every fire engine in the district every single day without fail. Our fire stations have been open for business. We have been engaged in the community, in the schools, on running the emergencies, and the public assists as well. We've invested heavily in our fleet with modernized and reliable fire apparatus. We've entered into agreements with Sonoma County Fire District for ambulances to be housed here in Cotati to bolster our resources. We have an agreement for sharing our command and control, which are our battalion chiefs, the shift commanders, with Sonoma County Fire and with Rohnert Park. We've invested in fire station remodels and improving the living conditions of firefighters, and we've entered into a service agreement, as I mentioned, for fire prevention. And we're in the process of entering into an agreement for personnel sharing. So prior to 2018, closing fire stations with the help of the community, now we have been a fully functioning fire agency. One of the questions that gets asked frequently is, what will happen to my taxes? Are my taxes going to go up so that this can happen? And the answer is no. So taxation will not be affected by the consolidation. There's 2 taxations that we receive. We receive the ad valorem tax, the property tax. That doesn't change at all. And we also receive the Measure W special property tax, which every parcel in the jurisdiction pays. And that won't change either. You'll receive an increased level of service, support, and operations with no change to taxation. Our citizens overwhelmingly supported us in 2018 with Measure W, and we will continue to deliver on that. And in fact, this consolidation will help close out not only Measure W, but now the Measure H funds that we receive through sales tax and the property tax. And it'll do that by bringing you paramedics on your fire engines. It'll do that by providing you that continuity of operations, the Fire Prevention Bureau, and a stronger leadership team. Go ahead with the next slide. And the other question naturally is, what do your firefighters think? What will happen to your firefighters? This has been an initiative that's been driven by our firefighters, and they fully support the consolidation. Yes, you'll continue to see some of the existing personnel that we have, but you'll also see some new faces. We'll continue to respond from all 3 of our fire stations. Our deployment model will not change, and those will remain fully staffed. And again, no fire stations are closing and no personnel are being laid off. We are enhancing service to the community, not reducing it. Go ahead, next slide. So what happens next with the consolidation or the annexation process? So as I mentioned to you, it's guided by LAFCO's process, and we're currently in what's called a municipal service review. So LAFCO has taken a look at both Sonoma County Fire District and Rancho Adobe Fire District at their operations, their deployment, their response times, their call volume, their financial plan, their financial audits, their budget reserves, et cetera. And they're in the process of making an assessment of, are both of these solid agencies, or is one a failing agency that needs to be bailed out? And that is not the case. They're both solid agencies. And also with that comes a sphere of influence change. So it allows Sonoma County Fire District now to overlay their sphere of influence over our jurisdiction. That all paves the way for an application to LAFCO for annexation. And then once that occurs, the LAFCO commission, once the application's received, there's a 60-day waiting period, and then the commission takes a vote, and you can, of course, correct me if I misspeak on any of these. I know you're an expert. And then once it is voted on, there's a public protest period. So this is one area where the public has the opportunity to engage, raise their hand, and say, wait a second, I have questions. I protest this for whatever reason it may happen to be. And then there's approval by the LAFCO Commission, and finally consolidation would become effective July 1st of 2026. Go ahead with the next one. And what that brings for you, as mentioned, is paramedics on the fire engines, a fully administrative division with continuity of operations, an expanded depth of personnel for all succession, established fire prevention bureau, established community outreach, fire apparatus fleet maintenance division, and then the benefits to our community, as I've mentioned a couple times now, are the service level enhancements by bringing in paramedics, the fire prevention, the administration, human resources, finance, and of course the operational support. So instead of having 3 fire engines, we would now have a fire district with 14 fire stations. So the next question is, how do I get input into the process as a citizen and a community member? How do I voice my opinion? How do I get more information? Certainly the first way is that people can email me directly, and my email address is here. You can also check our website and email directly through our website. You can provide in-person comments at any of our board of directors meetings, which are the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. right here at the Cotati Fire Station. And then you'll also, as mentioned, have the opportunity to comment during the protest period where each parcel owner and registered voter within the jurisdiction will receive notification on how to do that. So there's a lot of opportunity for input. This is really the first time I'm getting out in front of the community sharing this message. We also have put on our website a dedicated drop-down link for consolidation information. So with that, I have a letter to the community that outlines essentially what we've talked about tonight, what the benefits are of consolidation, why we're doing it, and how that affects the community. We also have a frequently asked questions document that's been produced. I'll leave copies of those for you tonight, but that's also on our website. A copy of this PowerPoint presentation will be on our website. So we are fully intending on making this as transparent and answering all of the questions from the community as we can. And we encourage those emails or phone calls to come in so that we can try to keep everybody updated on where we are in the process and what's occurring, and certainly sharing it with the city. So with that, I would open it up to any questions that the council might have.
Any council member questions? I just had one, and that was, do you anticipate, we recently approved a parcel tax on your behalf based on a Nexus study that was ran to Adobe Financials. So will that have to be redone with the new, or have you looked into that yet?
I suspect that it probably will, because that Nexus study is based on just our current geography, and the new Sonoma County Fire District has their own Nexus study based on theirs.
Right.
So they would need to take a look at total jurisdiction, probably just an update of that, and then both agencies after consolidation would share the same financial process, modality, whatever that arithmetic
Right. Great.
ends up being.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your email so any of us or members of the public who wish to can email you questions.
Of course, great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, that will take us on to our agenda review. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
No proposed changes, Mayor.
All right, so that'll take us to citizen business and public comment for consent calendar items. And so this is a chance for members of the public to speak on any item within the council's jurisdiction, whether it's on anything that's not on the agenda or anything on the consent calendar. And the normal allotment is 3 minutes for items not on the agenda and 3 minutes for any and all items on the consent calendar, unless an ADA accommodation has been requested. So with that, we'll go to public comment. We'll start in the room. I don't see any commenters here, so we'll go to Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Zoom attendees, use the raise hand icon to make a public comment, please. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. You have the floor.
Hi. Once again, you forgot to do public comment on presentations. So I'm going to do that first. I want to correct the chief on the history of in the last 15 years. What happened was in 2012, they were closing stations, and they buckled down, and they were able to keep all the stations together. And then 2014 was this big fire next door to me with 6 explosions, and all the people, all the experts and everything said that it was 1 minute more, that if the Katati station had not been opened, that my mom would have lost her life and that our house would be gone. The decisions made, it was heroic. And so what they did is Chief Frank Triner and I went to get more funding, and by Chief Thompson, by 2018, for Measure W, I was going around with him telling the story, because that 1 minute more response time could save your life. It did for my mom, and that's the level of service we wanted. And so I just wanted to correct him on that. And then my other basic citizen comment, I'm obviously really tired, and I'd like to give kudos out to Kevin, because he spent over 5 hours doing a code out enforcement hearing and today over Zoom. And now he's doing your city council meeting, so don't keep him up too late. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. We will endeavor to let Kevin go home at a reasonable hour. Any more public comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ford. The next hand is from Neil Hancock. You have the floor.
Yes, hello, thank you. I would also like to comment on the fire chief's presentation. Very nice to have him come and give the presentation, and I just hope that with the district looking at the plans that come through, that they will consider being good partners in the safety on the roads. I know there's sometimes a view that things should be wide open on the roads, but this also leads to speeding traffic. So when something comes up for a design for the fire district, and they can look at how their fire engines will get through there, I hope they'll also consider how to be a good partner for safety on the roads for the rest of the time. So that's my comment. Thank you very much. Appreciate the chief's presentation and looking at it on the web. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further hands on Zoom. Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 7, the consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar anybody wishes to pull? Councilmember Sparks. Uh-oh.
I wish to pull my water all over the table, and then, sorry about that. And then, yeah, I wanted to pull the Katati Accordion Festival item from the calendar.
Okay, so that is item D. And so I'm going to ask if anybody objects to doing that directly after the consent calendar. Is that an okay place to move that to? Okay, so we'll do 7D. We'll move to the regular agenda, but we'll do it right after the consent calendar. Anybody else? Okay, anybody wish to make a motion on the others?
Move to approve the consent calendar minus item D.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries 5-0. So we'll jump into that item now. So I guess it's technically on the regular agenda. We'll call it item 10B, but we're doing it now. So this is item 7D, adoption of resolution approving the 2026 Katati Accordion Festival and associated sale of alcoholic beverages, amplified music, and temporary street closures. And we'll start with the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you. So as you know, the Katati Accordion Fest has been going on for over 30 years now, and they are proposing it for this coming year in 2026 on Saturday and Sunday, August 15th and 16th. And they are asking for the same permissions that they've asked for in the past several years, which includes the bandstand with electricity, the sale of alcohol, closure of certain streets behind the park and on West Sierra to fence in the park for the event, and the same facilities as prior years, and the city-owned lot near the SMART station for parking as well, which we've done for the last 3 years, I believe. And they are requesting it to, requesting the park for our Thursday to set up beforehand and Monday morning to clean up. So the request would be from 10 a.m. on, or yeah, it would be 10 a.m. Friday would be the street closures and reopen by 10 a.m. on Monday. That's the same that's been happening for the last several years. The event would be the same times as it has been, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, with live amplified music during from 9:45 to 8 p.m. each of those days. The traffic route would be the same that we've done in the past several years, with La Plaza behind the park closed from West Sierra to Old Redwood Highway, and parking would be along William, Olaf, and Henry, and designated ADA parking would be on West Cotati. And then we would put, our Public Works Department would be putting up the no parking signs in advance, and the ADA parking signs ahead of time. I'm trying to think if new this year, they're requesting a 50% fee waiver that was the same that we provided in 2024. And according to the master fee schedule and the city policy, the park permit policy, designated nonprofits that are not charging for an event have the right to that. They are a nonprofit, but they do charge for the event. But since it's something that we've been granting them that fee waiver for a very long time, we are requesting that we continue to do that. We do have a budget listed here that we got from 2024 for the event that you can see in the attachments of the event itself. And the cost that we would be recommending to waive this year would be very similar to last year. It's just gone up with the adjustment that happens annually. So it's just a few dollars difference, I believe. And that would be waiving 50% of all permit fees and 100% of extra staff time, which is indicated in the staff report. You can see the total staff costs estimated, and then from Public Works and Recreation, and then the permit fees would be the $6,042, which includes street closures, permits, the parking lot permit fee, the restroom cleaning fee, and the application fee. And we are recommending to raise the deposit, the refundable deposit, slightly because it is such a large event, and $500 just doesn't seem to be quite enough anymore. So we're requesting to raise that to $1,500. And we would also continue to offer them as a designated, one of our designated free trash and recycling and compost recipients from Recology that we're allowed every year according with our agreement with them. So we would be recommending that that we reduce the fee to $3,021, which would be what we would collect from them still. That's 50%, and then absorb the other $7,926.50 for of staff time, which would be an absorption by the city of $10,947.50, plus the donated compost, trash, and recycling bins. And then one thing that we would be requesting to do moving forward is that any event that requests fee waivers above what's permitted already through the policy, we would require the city the event to provide the city with event budgets prior to the event and post-event actuals after the event, so we can see what they're proposing the event to bring in and cost, and then afterwards, a couple of weeks afterwards, getting the actual numbers so that we can kind of follow up on that and see how that money is going to use. The Accordion Fest specifically does donate to several different nonprofits in the area. And the numbers for 2024 are listed. They didn't have the 2025 numbers all complete yet. That's why we use 2024 for this. So the 2024 numbers are provided for what the donations were into each agency. Some of the other things that we have recommended to the Accordion Fest is to work with other Cotati specific groups that they could benefit from, and they haven't finalized anything yet, but they are in talks of that with a couple different groups. So there's discussions, and we will be in the loop for that moving forward, but right now that's nothing that's been set in stone. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
As part of the presentation, before we open the questions, I'm also going to invite the representative of the applicant to chime in. I know that he's online, so I wanted to, Mr. Gorey, if you'd like.
Mr. Gorey, we're going to give you permission to turn on your microphone and address the council.
Am I there?
Yes, we hear you.
Thank you. Well, I'm here for any questions.
Okay, great. Nothing you'd like to add to the staff report? You're good? Okay.
No, it sounded like everything she had explained to me.
Okay, great. So, council questions? Councilmember Sparks.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about the computation of the city contribution that's in the staff report that comes out to $10,947.50. I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So the total fees are $6,000 without the waiver would be $6,042. Is that intended? And I know that our philosophy and legal requirements on the fees are that they're supposed to cover our costs, basically. So is this number 7962 of the staff time? Is that, like, in a perfect world, would that number be $6,042 so that it covered it completely? Yes. Okay, so in that case, it kind of feels like we're double counting the money, a little bit. Like we're saying we would have received this amount of fee from you, but then also we have staff costs on top of that, but the staff costs would kind of be covered by the fee theoretically. Is that right?
So in the way that the policy is written, which isn't here, it says that the fees are intended to cover the, they're meant to cover the staff time to process each of those items, but in any case where there's direct staff costs, the event host will be charged for those. And so this is one that's just much more in depth than what a different event might have and what the fees are. We would charge so much more, but it would be almost,
so
unattainable.
So you're saying even if our actual costs due to the event are only, this is all just hypothetical, even if our actual costs for the event were $8,000 roughly, but we had a fee that was $6,000, you're saying that the person would, if we were following the letter of the policy, they'd be charged an additional $8,000 or an additional $2,000 of the costs that weren't covered by the fee? Just want to make sure I understand the policy.
Ashley didn't say this, but we have an item later in this agenda talking about the park policy things, and we're gonna be bringing the whole park policy back to council to have this conversation in the near future about how that works, because what was shown in this staff report is so you're right, like when the fees are calculated, they're supposed to be on average the amount of costs that are required for different categories of permits. So when you charge a permit fee, that's the total cost. In some cases, the actual cost might be less. In other cases, the actual cost might be more, but this is supposed to, the permit cost is supposed to represent the average. In this staff report, it shows, I think largely for, there's a park policy provision, but largely for illustrative purposes, this is how much time this specific event takes. So whether you can add them all up, I think that's a conversation we should have when we talk about the park policy, about how that operates. We're not actually charging it in this event, and I'm not aware of any events where we are, but we should talk about that park
Yeah,
policy.
I'm just asking because of the letter that came in the agenda packet from our visitor tonight, was kind of asking questions about that number, the total number of how much we are contributing, and it did, I just wasn't clear on it, like, are we actually contributing that much, or is it just the way that we're accounting for it that comes out to a number that's that large? Okay, so that was my question anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of additive. I mean, so if you were to try to do it in terms of actual staff costs, the processing fee, it's not fully additive, but I think in reality, you'd have a certain amount of that just for processing permits, like staff costs at City Hall. These costs here are field costs. They're related to the actual event itself. So there's a little bit, I think, of overlap, but it wouldn't be fully additive, it would be partially additive in terms of actual costs.
Well, because if a lot of that staff cost is Public Works dealing with the road closures, then there's already a $4,000 of road closure fees that theoretically pay for that. Okay, anyway, we can move on to discussion later. That was my.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions before we do public comment? Okay, I don't see any, so we'll go to public comment. I don't see any commenters in the room, so we'll go to Zoom.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to comment on this item. Seeing no hands from our attendees, although there was a hand up, I think maybe Mr. Gorey had a comment.
Excuse me. I was just going to clarify one simple thing, and that is we are in discussion with a couple of groups that are more Cotati specific, but it's hard. You can't put something in stone when you don't have the event and the profit or the success in your hands. So in other words, it's nothing can be in stone until after the event anyway, because there are so many things that can happen. You can have extreme heat, it can rain, there can be fires, there can be whatnot, which would make the whole thing moot anyway. So, like I said, we're in due diligence. We are working with other groups to try to make everybody happy with with what we're trying to do for the community, but we can't really put something in stone in 2026 when it hasn't happened yet.
Great, thank you. Is that it?
Okay. Yes.
Yes, that was the extent of public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that'll close public comment. We'll bring it back to council for discussion. Councilmember Harvey.
I would just like to say that I really appreciate the letter that Mr. Gorhey wrote. It is very obvious to me that he took our discussion that we had on this extremely seriously and really did look into a lot of different aspects of the event. It is an event that's been going on for, many, many decades, and I do appreciate that while things stay the same, sometimes things need to evolve, and I appreciate his efforts to try and work with this community and with the city to evolve that event. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Councilmember Sparks.
Yeah, thank you. So I when I was reading the letter, I felt badly that I personally think that the Accordion Festival is an amazing event, and I'm really glad that we have it. And so I kind of got the feeling from the letter that hadn't come across in our conversation. So I want to make sure that that's very clear. Like, it's such a valuable event. It's the biggest event we have all year, and brings in an amazing number of people. And really grateful to the incredible amount of work that goes into putting it on. Looking at the fee waiver that they are requesting, they talked about going back many, many years. It used to be a full fee waiver. it's really only $3,000 more to do a full fee waiver. I'd propose that we just waive the fees entirely as a show of good faith and appreciation for all that the festival brings into us. So I wanted to throw that on the table. I don't know how other people feel about that. Happy to support the 50% fee waiver as well, either way.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Yeah, I also appreciate the accordion festival and the letter. And I don't know all the history, of this event, but I do know events, and I have, some experience with that. So I'm glad that they provided the budget and asking for the fee waiver and the staff costs, which sometimes I look at it and I say, okay, we need a lot in our city. We're a small city. We just came from a conference last week. We learned about how small cities we can't provide a lot to our residents, and so we try to find ways of helping our residents. So I don't know if there's a way we can continue looking at this in the future and seeing how we can kind of support events in our community and also help our city too, and in standardizing some of these events. It was just a thought that I had. And I support this event. Thank you.
I also feel strongly the Accordion Festival is a huge asset to Cotati, and I would hate to see anything happen to it. I think that we did go through the process of setting a policy and trying to standardize subsidies, and I think the idea that staff has put forward that we require a budget whenever somebody is requesting a subsidy in excess of what's standard in the policy. I think that's a really good idea, and I really appreciated seeing that in here, as well as the accounting of the donations that they made in 2024. Two organizations, some of which are in Rohnert Park, but are actually serve both communities quite extensively. So I feel like for an event that has this size budget and charges an admission fee, that a 50% waiver is a significant contribution on the part of the city, and I would like to stick with that myself. So any brief thoughts about Councilmember Parks' idea versus the staff proposal of 50%?
Well, I'm not going to be the one to make the motion because I don't think the motion I would make will pass. So I'll let someone else make a motion.
Yes, if there are no more comments, it's definitely time for a motion, or motion to adopt the resolution that's on packet page 61. You want to go?
I make a motion that we pass a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cotati approving the 2026 Annual Cotati Accordion Festival and authorizing the temporary closure of certain streets, the use of amplified live entertainment, and the sale of alcoholic beverages in La Plaza Park.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries 5-0. Thank you all. All right, so back to our regular order of business. We're on to item 8, direction on future agenda items. Do any council members have items they wish to place on future agenda? Not seeing any. We'll go on to item 9, public hearings. We have one public hearing tonight, which has a very long title. This is the consideration, introduction, and first reading of a draft ordinance updating the rules of conduct for parks and other public areas and adding permit procedures by amending chapters 4.04, 7.12, 7.24, 7.28, 9.33, 9.36, and 9.40 of the Cotati Municipal Code. We'll start with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So this started as looking at park signs and noticing that some park signs had inconsistent lettering and wording on them and references to municipal code, and turned into, as you can see, a very multi-code section update across many sections of code, because it turns out the parks have lots of rules that pull from lots of different sections and chapters of our municipal code. And primarily when we did an inventory of parks, as you all know, as the council has been spending significant resources to rehabilitate and basically totally refurbish our parks. The rules, in having consistent set of rules across our parks becomes more important. And also, we've also spent a significant amount of time on our wayfinding program. The park signs are from different eras, various different eras. They have different looks, different feels. And this is also an opportunity to pull them all into a wayfinding format so they're cohesive and consistent with the other signs that have, they're in some parks, but largely around our public right-of-way. So as I mentioned, the signs, when we inventoried them all, there is an inventory, and I apologize, in print it's very small in the matrix, but you can see all the different rules and the different parks where those rules are posted. And, you know, we quickly noticed that they're inconsistent and out of date. Some of the references to code sections, just that code section just doesn't exist any longer. Or, you know, even the same rule in different parks may be pointed to different sections of the code. So that was the primary impetus of bringing this forward. In the staff report, there's the various chapters of our municipal code that are referenced in various park signs, and a summary of whether there's any proposed changes. And if there were proposed changes, they're attached as exhibits to the ordinance in red line strikeout. If there was no changes, it's just noted in the staff report that there was no changes made to that section. So I'll just run through them real quick. Chapter 4.04, which is where a lot of the changes happened. This is basically the fees for use of city facilities, and a lot of the language in there was redundant or potentially conflicted with our separately council adopted park policy. So a lot of the changes there were just removing some of that language and pointing back to rules or policies adopted by the council, rather than have just have an opportunity for conflict between the park policy and these rules. There's some clarification around encroachments, because we do both. We have a separate section in our code for encroachments in the public right-of-way, but we also have instances where we have events in the streets, like block parties, that sort of thing. So we want, and we do have events in the street as well. So a good example is the shop and stroll, where we shut down Old Railroad Highway. That's not really an encroachment, because encroachment's a clunky process for permitting an event like that. So we have a special events permit that we use for that. But this is just clarifying that this is how we actually do it, right? So if there's a event in the street, like I said, like a block party or this kind of shop and stroll event, it's just handled like almost like a park permit. So it's a much simpler process than a encroachment permit via that other section of our code, which generally handles improvements or modifications in the public right-of-way. As we just mentioned, if there was, funny enough, there's a section of the code that already exists that says that if you're requesting reduced fees or whatever, then you need to produce actuals. So that was just bolstered, that section, the existing section was just bolstered to say, if you're requesting reduced fees that vary from the park policy, you have to give us a budget ahead of time for council review and approval, and also actuals, which is the existing part of that code afterwards. Chapter 7.112, which is the licensing and keeping of cats and dogs. So this just reduced some redundancy on leash restraints. For whatever reason, this section had a section of the code that talked about leash restraints, but there's also in 7.24 also a section about leash restraints, so that they were redundant. So we deleted it out of 7.12, moved relevant sections to 7.24, and also did some cleanup related to our transition to DocuPet with licensing, but it's relatively minor. 7.16, the sale of animals, there was no proposed changes, and therefore there's no ordinance attachment. 7.24, this is where we brought in some of those, the section around leash restraints that were applicable in largely control of animals, you have to have control of animals on leash, as was in 7.12. So this just clarifies the leash law in all public places, including parks. Primarily, that you have to have a dog on a 6-foot leash, you have to be in control of your dog. in any public space unless that space is specifically designated or signed by the city to allow an off-leash dog. So that's dog parks. It also includes the definition, or includes prohibitions of dogs on special use sports facilities. So we regularly get complaints about like dogs off leash in the tennis courts or in the basketball courts, or as we all talked about last year, the baseball fields that are fenced in. And so they would have to be specially signed to say that this is, you know, that dogs are prohibited in this fenced enclosed area, or they're allowed off leash in this fenced enclosed area, like a dog park. This is very similar to what other cities do for leash laws, and it makes it more enforceable and easier to follow for people. And the next chapter, 7.28, that chapter is about dogs in parks during festivals. It's fully stricken out. We have some current rules right now that say you can't have dogs in festivals, they're prohibited. That's been like completely ignored and totally unenforceable. So it would just revert back to the dogs on leash, 6-foot leash, and they have to be in control of the person handling them. Chapter 8.12, which is rubbish and debris, that would be unchanged. 9.33, public urination, defecation, and exposure. So this has just some odd rules around. You can do it if you're under 10 years old, but you can't if you're over 10. So we just remove that, and eliminates the age distinction and removes redundant language around public exposure. So this really didn't have much to do with the rules and the parks per se, but it just was glaringly needing some, at least from our perspective, needing some modifications. And then lastly, almost lastly, 9.36 is conduct in parks, plaza, streets, and sidewalks, and other places. So this modified the park open hours. So we just said it's consistent with most other places where it's sunrise to sunset. It's easy to enforce because there is actually a sunrise and sunset as opposed to dusk and dawn, which is kind of squishy as to what that means exactly. Of course, unless permission's granted. So we obviously have some events in parks, like the tree lighting, for example, is an obvious one where that's going to be after dark, but that would be allowed by permit. There's a variety of changes to the prohibition of drums. We had drum prohibitions on certain days and certain hours, so that's hopefully cleaned up, and clarified that any amplified sound is not permitted without a permit. And it also includes permit procedure language, because amplified sound can be something like a concert or some sort of amplified musical instrument, but it also could be a free speech event of some type, like a protest or something. So there was sections in there that were added in conversation with city attorney's office to make sure that there was consistency in our process, so that we don't get ourselves in any trouble down the road for how we handle those types of events. Chapter 9.40, obstructions of streets and sidewalks. The proposed changes in this chapter just clarify that there's instances such as events or construction encroachments, which are different, and points you to the right sections of the code. And then lastly, chapter 9.41, which is curfews. It's referenced in the park signs. There's no proposed changes to this chapter. And then under financial consideration, as I mentioned earlier, the intent after the ordinance updates are complete is to go back out to the parks, have a consistent updated set of rules that are then posted, both the general park rules signs, which would be at the primary entrance of the park areas, but then also like dog parks, special use sports facilities would have smaller, more specific signs for those areas. And that would cost money, but we would come back to council with any request for that, because it's not currently in our budget. But that, I think, is a quick overview, or maybe not so quick overview of changes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Council questions? Councilmember Harvey.
So Damien, what about the, in the dog license fee exemptions? It states that one dog kept in a household where the owner of the dog is over the age of 55 is exempt, but the software doesn't work like that. So do we need to eliminate that item? It's section 712-120 on page 89.
So you are correct that this is a holdover from our current ordinance where we, for seniors, we exempt, or anyone over, I think it's 55, right? Can get one free dog license, and then after that, they pay the normal fee. When we merged our licensing process with Runner Park and DocuPet, Runner Park has a different provision. They basically say all seniors from dog number 1 have to be licensed. They have to pay for the license, but there's a reduced senior licensing fee. So if you're a senior, you pay $6 to license your dog, which is basically just what it costs to produce the tag. It's a very low fee, but that's how Runner Park that's how they do it. We don't, as you can see by the ordinance, that's not how we do it. We exempt the first one, but then license them as a senior at the senior fee after that. DocuPet can't do both. So in practice, what ends up happening is a senior would have to license their first dog and pay for it, pay the $6, and then call us and get a refund on that $6. So it's clunky, but that's how it works right now. So,
But there's nowhere that says that that's what someone needs to do.
yeah, so that is an oversight. So I think after the conversation tonight, I think we would have to do one of two things. Either we'd have to put clear language on the website so that people know that that's the process to get the $6 refund, or we can, I mean, since we're introducing the ordinance tonight, we could take this opportunity to just say all dogs are, there's not one free dog for seniors, and handle it like Runner Park does. So either way, I think could work.
Okay, so we'll discuss that when it's discussion time. Any other questions? All right, let's open this up for public comment. We'll start with Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a comment on this item. Not seeing any hands, that will end the Zoom portion of public comment.
All right, thank you. And we have no members of the public in the chambers, so that will end public comment. And we'll bring it back to the council for discussion and a decision. So let's start with this senior, how we handle dog license fees for seniors. Do we want to just delete that 712-120C and just handle senior dog licenses in the fee schedule? Take it out of the ordinance? Or I think that's what you said as one option, right?
Yeah, and I forgot to add, previous to the DocuPet transition, the license fees were $35 each. That's why, I think that's why that was in there initially. It's $6 now, so there has been a change in the fee when we transitioned DocuPet.
The senior one is $6.
The senior one is now $6, yeah.
Yeah, and what's the general license fee, do we know?
It's a good question. I think it used to be 35, or maybe it's 35 now.
Okay.
For general, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know, I got the senior one, but
Right.
I didn't know that this was still in there. I just assumed when I went in there that, okay, now that we're in DocuPet, there's a senior rate, whereas we didn't have that
Right.
before. So I guess I would advocate for us to just take this out. I think $6 is not
too.
an unreasonable amount for however many dogs you have.
Exactly, right.
Well, but $6.
Well, if the second, in our old rules, the second license would be full price. They just get one free one. So if they're only paying 12 now for two
Right.
dogs, so it's
Exactly.
cheap, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we took it out, it would be streamlined according to DocuPet prices and fees?
Right.
Right, okay, it seems better to do it that way, streamlined.
Everybody agree to make that change to the proposal?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion?
On other items?
Yeah, anything in the whole package? which means practically the whole municipal code, but, you know.
No.
I had one other one I wanted to bring up, really tiny typo, I think, at packet page 101 in 936.110. There's an extra ing on the end of employing. It should just be employ with the changes to the sentence.
Which one? I'm sorry.
So
packet page
936.110, the amplified instruments and sound. So the sentence should read, "It is unlawful in any park for any person to play any amplified musical instrument or employ amplified sound for any purpose."
Okay, great. Got it.
Unless-
I forgot to mention too in my staff report that there was an updated version of 9.36.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah, it didn't change, I don't think this,
Yeah.
but it's in the parts that changed are highlighted in yellow, so you can
Oh,
tell
yeah.
which ones were modified from what was published in the packet.
Right. Any other discussion, or, Councilmember Sparks?
Yeah, I had two things. One was about the amplified sound and the removal of the drums. I had been over at the Cotati Historical Society sometime last year and reading about these really interesting events with drum circles and nudists in the trees and all kinds of interesting stuff in La Plaza Park. And apparently, I mean, I'm imagining that historical stuff had something to do with we can only have drums on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, trying to keep that under control. But I'm just a little wondering about the drums, because they're all taken out, but drums can be quite loud even if they're not amplified. So was the thinking just, we don't have a problem with drums now, so let's just let people drum? Or I just want to make sure we're sure that we want to reopen the floodgates on whatever historical drumming might have been happening.
Yeah, I'm not aware, after having the conversation with with Ashley and also the chief, we're not aware of any drum issues in any parks, and I've never heard of any in the recent past, but I believe that that's exactly why that section exists, because back in the 1970s or 80s maybe, there was drum circles.
Can I just add that there were some Aztec groups that were using the park to practice, so I think they probably had some drums too.
Okay, and then my other question was just, I do have some concern about the sunrise to sunset thing, because in the winter, the sun sets at 4:45. So are we really saying nobody can be in the park after 4:45? It seems a little unreasonable to me. People get off work at 5, they're not allowed to take a walk in the park because it's past sunset. So, I mean, I'm looking at where that section is, and it's the park hours on page, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, packet page 101. What was it before? Because it's not, there's no strikeout of the dusk to dawn on here. It just seems like there was the no camping requirement, and then we're changing it to sunset to sunrise closure. That seems like a big change.
Yeah, well, I think the goal, at least from a staff perspective, was not to wait until sunset and then try to bus people. But, if you have people there at night and they're creating a nuisance, then you have a clear line that you can enforce, as opposed to sunset and then you're arguing about, or dusk, then you're arguing about, is it really dusk yet, or is it nighttime? Just to create a clear
Well, it's not quite astronomical twilight. It's still nautical twilight. These kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
I see where that makes sense to me. I think I'd be more comfortable if we just chose some hours and stuck with them, because it seems excessive to me to close the park before 5 p.m. in the winter, and it's just so variable throughout the year.
Yeah, I'd support at least, I'm okay with sunrise to sunset with, or 6 p.m., whichever is later, kind of thing, that, or whatever, some other hour in the winter that I agree, it doesn't make, I mean, I had thoughts about the hub, like, the plaza. It's in the middle of downtown. Are we really saying people can't use the sidewalk and cross the park? So I don't know. Right, it's accepted for activities, but when somebody gets out of the restaurant at 9 p.m., we don't want them walking through the park. I don't know why. And I appreciate that like, the police aren't going to go start staking out the parks and catching everybody who's there after sunset. But we're talking about posting signs now, and they will say, park closed at sunset, and that means that rule followers will feel like they can't use the park then, and I don't want to give that information. So I'm curious about any other ideas for how that might read. I appreciate the need to have the overnight restrictions.
Is dusk the same as sunset?
Dusk is less
Yeah,
less well-defined.
dusk continues for a while after the sun has, I mean, sunset's right when the sun dips below the horizon, the flat horizon. Which is also kind of hard to tell when that happens because there's hills and trees and things, so.
But you can look it up at least.
You can look it up, yeah.
I mean, some of our communities have noise ordinances and things that go into place at 10 PM. I mean, is that too late just to say a 10 PM closing time?
I mean, you could say, so I think, part of what we're trying to respond to is, so setting La Plaza Park aside, I mean, you might have people hanging out in the back of parks behind someone's way to, like, hey, you guys got to move on, you can't sit back here and drink or whatever they're doing. I mean, so you could, I mean, maybe potentially say public parks are open from sunrise to sunset each day, but no later than 8 PM or something like that.
Or no, earlier closer, like at least 8 PM or something like that.
Yeah.
How about sunrise to sunset or 8 PM, whichever is later?
Yeah.
Or just 8 PM?
But like when when it's light until 9 in the middle of summer, people are going to hang out at the parks, and I want to let them, so.
Yeah, so sunrise to sunset or 8 PM, whichever is later.
That's kind of a lot.
I kind of like the 10 o'clock thing and just, it's kind of black and white. And I don't think too many people are drinking on the fences
Oh.
before 10 o'clock.
Okay, or 6 PM, I guess I'm hearing from, sorry, we're just doing this live here. So. Oh, their park restrooms close at 6, yeah. In the wintertime, the auto closes at 6, the restrooms.
Are they on a timer, or does someone go around on a timer?
We've invested in so much nice lighting in Cotati Park, and I frequently see people strolling around there in the evening, having a nice evening stroll, and I'd hate to see that become illegal behavior.
I kind of like the 10 PM idea that Councilmember Savage said, because people maybe may not be out there till 10 PM, but, at least they know there's kind of a time. I don't know.
And is drinking out there, we have other things that cover that, right? So we don't need to close them for that.
It's also a challenge, like, how do you put this on a sign so it's clear and not like a,
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true.
a bunch of if-then statements, like-
Well, I'm curious whether
So-
staff or including the chief see any issues with a 10 PM closure. Like, are we anticipating that's a big invitation for parties, or what do we think?
I don't know.
I see the chief kind of,
I don't know if the chief has any input, but normally once the sun goes down, there's not usually good things happening in parks.
I guess there's an argument just in that
Oh,
regard.
you have a mic
that,
back there. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, the nighttime argument obviously is that as soon as the sun goes down, then, enforcing that, and then sometimes that's when folks come to, there's problems in parks when the sun goes down. However, I will say that, anytime you put hours, like actual hours, that's easily enforceable, and it's simple, and it's easier from a policing standpoint. So we're not having the discussion about what the sun is doing or the moon is doing or anything like that. So, yeah, if you say 7 AM to 10 PM, then we all know what that means, and we'll enforce it as such. So that's the simple way from an enforcement standpoint. That's an easier from that lens.
Well, I don't want to hold things up, but I think rather than picking some random times right now, maybe we should take some time and look at, what do other cities do? What are the reasonable time limits that have worked well for other parks? Because I don't actually know off the top of my head, like, what other cities are doing on this.
So you suggested that after the parks are most of the renovations are done, we're going to come back for some revisiting of this, right? So one option would be to strike that first sentence, the first two sentences for now, and just leave it as is without a stated closing time, or to insert some specific times now and revisit it when we come back. I forget now what it was you wanted to come back and revisit.
Yeah, it was so we're going to have to come back with the actual, well, that's certainly for the funding for the signs.
Yeah.
To repost out there.
Okay, but not an ordinance change necessarily at that point.
No, I mean, it's fairly targeted, though. It's not like that big of a deal.
Could we kick park open hours to a policy, not have it in the code?
We could.
I mean, could we change this to say park open hours are set in
Per policy.
park policy? And
Yeah, that would be that's actually, I think, probably a good way to handle, just kind of move that issue down the road, and we're going to come back with the park policy in a couple meetings.
Right, so that's what I was, maybe by then we can have some samples from other cities and things like that. So do we need to wordsmith that sentence now to get the?
Yep.
Do we need to wordsmith that sentence now to say, park opening hours are set in the city's park policy? Is that?
Yeah, there's language in chapter 4.04. I was just looking for that right now. So give me 1 second. Okay, so so the heading would stay the same, park open hours and camping, and then the first sentence could just say, public parks are open during the hours set in accordance with restrictions, rules, or policies adopted by the city council. And then the second sentence would stay there, use outside would be only allowed by permit.
Everybody okay with that change? And then we'll visit those hours when the policy comes back. Okay, great. Any other issues or comments? Yes.
So I know this is nitpicky, but so we changed on 933 public urination, defecation, and exposure. And I know we're taking out the over the age of 10, but I do hope that that doesn't mean that we will be going after babies that are 1 year old. I'm pretty sure the chief is going to reassure me, but I just need that.
I will reassure you, we will not be citing babies for any of those
Thank you.
in the ordinance.
I don't want babies taken away from their mothers because they happen to drop their diapers.
Sorry, in that same section while we're there, 933.010, the new word in the title is misspelled. Sorry, packet page 99.
99.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Sorry, I hadn't noticed that before.
Yeah, I guess the spell checker didn't pick that one up.
Right, continue.
Okay. And then I know you've given this some thought on chapter 936, when we talk about engaging in archery, the flying of motorized model airplanes, blah, blah, blah. And my question was around drones, and I know you had some thoughts on that.
So my thought on that was to just, rather than try to restrict it in here, leave it alone, leave that particular section alone, because it's pretty common. I mean, drone use is pretty common, just in streets, around people's houses. A park isn't that much different. If they do actually hit somebody with a drone or anything else, they're subject to civil litigation, if you actually injure somebody. So I think it's already accounted for through civil litigation if someone's irresponsibly operating a drone.
But wouldn't that be true for all of the items in D? I'm just, section 9.36 on page 100.
It is, I think just some were, you could potentially nitpick this a bit, but some are more egregious, like you probably don't want people doing archery in a park generally, or driving golf balls, because that's clearly, a whole level higher of hazard than flying model airplanes, I don't know, but it's in the code right now.
Yeah.
And playing a baseball with a hard ball, how hazardous is that? I don't know, but it's in the code right now. You could potentially strike the playing of baseball, I think. Because someone tossing a ball back and forth outside of a baseball field probably is not a big deal, but anyway, we just didn't go there.
To me, the trouble with trying to add drones to this or something is that drones covers, now you buy a cheap little, take a cool picture of your a family reunion photo from 20 feet up to military grade, huge, and I would rather not ban the small photography aid kind of things, but we haven't had issues with people with large military grade drones that are threatening people, so I'm okay leaving it out for now.
Yeah, but I would also then say that I don't know that we've had problems with any of the things in this list.
Well, that's because they're already prohibited.
Yeah, I'm sure that every day our citizens are reading this. And I don't know. It just seems that these are outdated things that people just aren't doing in parks anymore, yet what people are doing in parks, I just was trying to get us time specific, but whatever.
I would be fine with taking the baseball one out of there and the model airplanes, because many people would read the model airplanes one as applying to drones. I think the driving of golf ball ones should stay.
Or unless you change it to any activities in which a projectile may pose a threat.
Yeah, that's where I was
Just take out the other
headed.
things,
You
'cause they're
take
kinda
the
outdated.
examples off and just say
Any
activities in which a projectile
may pose a threat.
Yeah.
So it leaves it open to,
So just engaging in activities in which a projectile may pose a threat to safety, except in such places as may be provided for such purposes.
Just a thought.
Any objection to just removing all the examples?
I think archery and golf balls, driving golf balls are two clear examples of things you
Right.
shouldn't be doing in a park, but,
Right.
I'd be okay leaving those two and then continuing on with that, or any other projectile, to give you some examples, or, you
It
could
does give
strike.
you an example of the level of severity we're talking about here.
Right, well, maybe if we do the engage in activities, blah, 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 for example, and then leave the archery and golf balls as a example.
yeah. I.e.
I.e., yeah.
E.g.
So kind of.
or E.g., okay.
Thank you, sir. It just, the way it's worded, it is very specific. It just kind of, there's lots of things people shouldn't be doing in the parks, but they do. And thank you for addressing the motorized vehicles in the other section.
Okay, so what I wrote down for that one is we changed item D to engage in activities in which a projectile may pose a threat to safety, parentheses, e.g. archery, comma, driving of golf balls, except in such places as may be provided for such purposes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other issues or comments? Okay. Would somebody like to try to make a motion?
Do we need a motion if it's a draft ordinance?
Yeah, we need a motion to introduce, we're introducing this motion. It'll come back for a second reading some other time.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to, that we introduce and conduct this first reading of a draft ordinance, adding the information, have to go read everything, adding permit procedures and amending chapters 4.04, fees for use of facilities, 7.12, licensing and keeping of dogs and cats, 7.24, animal restrictions, 7.28, dogs in parks during festivals, 9.33, public urination, defecation, and exposure, 9.36, conduct in parks, plazas, streets, and sidewalks, and other places, and 9.40, obstructing streets and sidewalks of the Cotati Municipal Code with the changes that we made to what was submitted to us.
Do you want to run down your list of changes, or is it all scattered throughout?
I think most of them are relatively focused. So the changes we discussed are Chapter 9.33, this is 9.33.1 or 010. There's just a spelling error, fixing that. Chapter 9.36, there's the additions to the packet that are on the dais, also on the back and on the website. But in addition to those changes, we also talked about the park open hours. This is section 9.36.060, park open hours and camping. Park open hours are open during the hours set in accordance with the restrictions, rules, or policies adopted by the City Council. So we'd make that one change to that first sentence in that section. We'd also change under section 9.36.030, item D, engage. So it's unlawful for any person in any park to engage in activities in which a projectile may pose a threat to safety, such as archery or driving of golf balls, except in any such places as may be provided for such purpose. And then there was also, for dog licensing, this is chapter 7.112, section 120, removing item C. So this is the removal of the exemption for seniors for the first dog for licensing fees.
Yep, that's everything I had. And does your motion include all of that?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries 5-0. Thank you. So now back to our regular agenda, which is, our next item is to consider a resolution in support of the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund legislation. And we'll start with the staff report.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So as you all are very aware, the council has over the years adopted a variety of measures to support and protect the climate. The background lists an example of some of the main ones that have happened in recent years. This was a request from Mayor Ford and also Councilmember Sparks, who had asked for this item to come forward. But the resolution of support was provided, the draft template was provided by Woody Hastings of the Climate Center here in Sonoma County, who also gave me the status of where this resolution is in terms of city support throughout the state, and that's on the first and second pages of the staff report. So you have a variety of cities in the Bay Area, some in Southern California, yeah, I guess Santa Cruz is kind of Central Coast, but Bay Area adjacent. So those have all passed resolutions similar to the one that's in the packet tonight. In Sonoma County, I don't know where this stands with other cities. I know that they're considering it at some level. It's either been or it's going to be on their agendas, but I don't know the status other than what's in the packet. So there's both an Assembly bill and a companion Senate bill. It's AB 1243 and SB 684. And this is it's kind of in progress in a 2-year budget cycle, 2-year legislative cycle, I should say. And this would establish a polluters pay climate superfund program modeled in many ways after the CERCLA federal law, which is the Superfund law. And the bills would direct Cal EPA to complete a climate cost study, identify responsible parties. So these are mostly large historical fossil fuel producers. Calculate a proportional cost recovery demand based on emissions since 1990, which is the so-called covered period in the legislation, in the draft legislation. And then collect fees into a state polluters pay climate superfund fund. And then this would be available for mitigation, adaptation, disaster response and program. And there's a 40%, in the current draft, there's a 40% minimum or no less, I think it's termed no less than 40% would be allocated to disadvantaged communities. The staff report goes through the both the this proposed Polluters Pay Superfund Act, but also the existing cap and trade system, which seemed like it might have some overlap. So we evaluated the proposed legislation with the existing cap and trade, which is now it's been reauthorized by the state legislature this legislative session in 2025, and it's now been renamed Cap and Invest, but it's the cap and trade program that the state had previously done under AB 32, which is the Global Warming Solutions Act. And so under the existing cap and trade, I won't get into all the detail, but just as broad overview, the existing cap and trade laws, the California Air Resources Board issues a limited number of greenhouse gas allowances, and that permits up to a cap. And the emitters that are covered by this legislation must either stay under the cap, or they have to purchase to go over the cap, or they can sell if they're under the cap. So it looks at like a whole market approach to emissions. And the program is designed to decline the total amount of credits issued by CARB declines over time. So the idea is you look at a whole system emissions, and over time you bring that down. So in net, even though you don't regulate point pollution per se, in net you bring it down overall over the years. So the proposed Polluters Pay Superfund Act, it's more of a retrospective cost recovery law looking for the climate harms and damage caused over time, specifically the covered period, so that's 1990 through 2024. And it also would project forward to 2045, which would be the period that the legislation would cover. And I won't go through the details, but you'll see in the staff report that there is a table of comparison in different areas between these two laws. One thing I will point out is with the new law, the consensus seems to be that the litigation, so the cap and trade law has already been litigated, and so it's established law. The litigation risk for this law is probably high because of the retroactive liability and the extra territorial reach of the law. So I'm sure it'll be in the court for a while if it does get passed. As far as financial considerations, there's no direct financial considerations for the city. Cotati is not a disadvantaged community, so to the extent that we'd be eligible for any money that would come out of some law like this, it would be we'd be competing for the 60%, not the 40% that would be earmarked, at least 40% earmarked for disadvantaged communities. And the actual amount of money and the timing, of course, would depend on the climate cost study that would have to be done, any sort of legal outcomes, and then, of course, appropriation by the state legislature. And there's sort of a kind of a knock-on potential effect of cost, but that really is highly speculative at this point, because it just depends on how the various regulated industries would absorb whatever regulatory cost this would create. Would it be passed through in products and services, or how would they manage that cost? I don't know. But it would be added into the total mix of the cost. So I will leave it there, but I'm happy to answer any questions if the council has any.
Any council questions? Okay, we'll open this up to public comment. I don't see anybody in the chamber, so we'll go to Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. We do have two hands. The first hand I saw was from Neil Hancock. You have the floor.
Yes, good evening, Council. I'd like to support this measure. We do need to have a forward-looking aspect to the issues that are being discussed, so I'd like to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. The next hand is from Jenny Blaker. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Can you? Yes, thank you. Yes, I also just wanted to urge you to support the resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there are no further hands on Zoom, Mayor Ford. That will end public comment.
All right, back to the council for discussion and decision. Comments?
I support this, this motion, or this item.
Okay, not seeing anybody else. Anybody wish to make a motion?
I move that we adopt a resolution supporting the enactment of the proposed Polluters Pay Climate Superfund Act, SB 684, AB 1243.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you. That brings us on to item 11, the city manager's report.
All right, so there is a lot of stuff going on, like usual. We have, in the police department, the PD is participating in the Great Shakeout this Thursday, October 16th, with Thomas Page Academy, and more generally with the Cotati Rohnert Unified School District. The exercise will begin at 1:30 in the afternoon at Thomas Page Academy, and the RPD will be on site to participate and assist in the earthquake drill to provide school staff with feedback and guidance during the exercise. So, and there's been a lot of conversation over many months, so it's finally just about here. The police are also hosting a coffee with a cop at Johnny Java's Thursday, October 23rd from 7:30 to 9 a.m. And in the kind of miscellaneous other items, we had some rainfall, as you all know, and the city stormwater permit makes us responsible for ensuring and enforcing only clear runoff exits construction sites. And so we've been busy working with property owners and our own construction sites, our two park projects that are going on right now, to make sure that silt fences, straw wattles, and fabric are over drainage inlets, and just making sure that no silty water leaves construction sites. As we heard earlier tonight, Zero Waste Week is this week, and there continues to be free events throughout Sonoma, Marin, and Napa counties. I won't go on about it. We talked about it tonight, but we're in the midst of it right now. We're also working on an update to our hazard mitigation plan, and we're doing this, working with the county and also a bunch of other county jurisdictions we're all doing it together. And this is planned to go out for public comment on October 20th through November 10th. And when the public comment period opens, the city will post a link to the plan on the city headlines on our website. But I also wanted to point out that there's also going to be, we're also working together with Petaluma, Rohnert Park, and some other South County districts to hold a in-person community meeting at Herzog Hall in Petaluma Fairgrounds on October 30th from 2 to 3 p.m. or 6 to 7 p.m. But that's an in-person opportunity, but there's plenty of opportunity to comment online as well. And just a reminder that the Climate Ready Fair that date's been set for March 28th, 2026 at the Cotati train station. And there'll be a lot more information coming out as we get closer to that, but we're looking to build on last year's very successful event. This coming weekend, we have the Cotati Fall Festival at the Veranda Floody Ranch. So this new year on Friday, the 17th, we'll be hosting our Autumn Moon Soiree for those 21 and up from 5 to 8 p.m. And this is a fundraiser for the ranch. We'll include dinner with vegetables grown on the ranch, dessert, beer, wine, and non-alcoholic beverages like music, a tarot card reader apparently, and sip and paint pumpkins. So it should be fun that evening. And then the following day, October 18th, we're going to be doing our normal family-friendly Fall Fest from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then in the first hour from 10 to 11 will be a sensory-friendly hour where there's just more quieter activities for people that need a more quiet environment. And starting at 11 a.m., it all breaks loose then, and the noise starts happening. So we're going to have music and pumpkin patch and take-home pumpkins for everyone that comes, pumpkin painting games, snack bar, and more. So children under 2 are free, and it should be a fun day. And then finally, in October 31st, we have our 6th annual Cotati Candyland event in La Plaza Park, and then throughout our downtown and other areas, business areas of town. So 2 to 5 p.m., it's open to anyone, and it's a great event for especially families with younger children that don't want to be out at night. It's a good daytime trick-or-treating opportunity for everybody. And then we're continuing through the fall several classes, including strength and balance, memoir writing, storytelling, Aikido, Zumba Gold, children's theater, as well as our after-school enrichment program at the ranch, and free compost pickup days and volunteer days. So I will leave it there, but I'm happy to answer any questions if the council has any.
Any questions? Okay, let's move on to council member reports. We'll start down Councilmember Sparks.
Sure, thank you. Not much to report, just the 2x2 Education Committee meetings. We're having one on Wednesday, and then the shakeout will be on Thursday, and then we have a debrief meeting the following Monday to go over how it went. So a reminder that they'll be doing early release at Thomas Page Academy, and also at University Elementary at La Fiesta, which is in Roanoke Park technically, but it's about 2 inches from Cotati. So it will be affecting traffic because they're going to be checking off that the names of the parents and checking, releasing the children to them by name. So anyway, that's happening Thursday.
Thank you. Councilmember Harvey.
Just one report. I attended the Marin Sonoma Mosquito and Vector Control District meeting the other night, and interestingly enough, we have had this year a record yellow jacket. They have received over 6,000 calls for service on yellow jackets. They've just never seen anything quite like that. They haven't really determined why all of a sudden, but yeah, it was really a record. The other items that happened were they received a audited financial statement for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, and it was a clean audit, so that was a good thing. And then we had a quite lively and long discussion about the facility improvements, and there was a lot of discussion around how to progress with it. Some members wanted a bid process, a build and bid process, and they are suggesting to do a progressive design build facility improvement where the architect and the contractor kind of get together and collaborate as we go along. So it was a very interesting discussion that we had, but ultimately we approved putting out requests for proposals for that methodology. So we'll see how that goes.
I had a couple things to report. Just after our last meeting, the Russian River Watershed Association Board had its quarterly meeting, and that organization does an amazing variety of things. The placemats that kids color in are now in like 40 restaurants. They go through many thousands of them a year, and the Streets to Creeks sort of trash prevention campaign is really gaining traction actually across the state, even though it started here. That was followed by a strategic planning meeting, which is working to, especially to figure out the governance of ROWA and the relations between the TAC and the board and make that a little more better coordinated. Then I think it was last week I attended the SCTCA board as our alternate while Councilmember Harvey was away, and that was a interesting meeting in which we learned about the changes to cap and trade in the new cap and invest, which is interesting. It's flat dollar amounts now with no inflation adjusters for the various bins. So if it actually lasts 20 years, that's all going to be worth a third of what it is now. So it's very strange. So that's an odd piece about it. Also learned that the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is thinking about changes to the nitrous oxide rules that as they currently are, would prevent installation of any natural gas home appliances starting next year. So they're realizing that there's not actually a path to alternatives for many houses right now, and they're trying to figure out what the path forward is for that. So they're considering changes to those rules. And then also last week, Vice Mayor Lemus and City Manager Obid and I went to the Cal Cities Conference and went to a lot of interesting sessions and met. For me, it was valuable to make connections with people from other small cities and try to figure out how they really adjust things. There's a fledgling small cities group forming within Cal Cities, which would be a good idea. There was not a single resolution put forward, so the plenary didn't even happen. So I didn't get to exercise the power of the vote that you gave to me. So, and that's it.
Okay, so on the 25th, I was invited to one of the Rotary clubs that meets here in Cotati. We went to Scandia and Roanoke Park and played mini golf. On the 28th, I went to Petaluma Friends of the River event. I went to a SMART initiative kickoff at Lagunitas on the 30th of September. Sonoma Clean Power meeting on the 2nd of October, Sonoma Clean Power meeting, and there was a really great presentation I have if anyone wants to know about the regulatory ecosystem in the energy sector, Cal EPA and CARB and all the organizations, how they work, the history and everything. Adam George gave a great presentation. Some news coming out of it right now, Lake County is voting on whether to join Sonoma Clean Power, and I just heard that one of the cities, I think it's Lakeport, voted not to join. So I'm not sure what that would look like if Lake County and Clear Lake want to join. We're going to assess that later. So that's kind of on Sonoma Clean Power. I was invited to a last-minute Rotary Club presentation because a presenter dropped out, and that was also on the 2nd. On the 3rd, I went to Regional Parks Foundation meeting. And then last week, I was at the Cal Cities Annual Conference, where the keynotes, there was a Crystal Washington. She's a futurist. And a futurist is a creator that helps create like AI and is a visionary for a lot of different technology. So she was really good. And then we had Erin Brockovich was a closing keynote speaker. So she was there as well. Like Mayor said, it was very good to connect with different people at the conference. And glad to be back from that as well. There was a Cotati Chamber meeting that was rescheduled, so we didn't have it today. So the Cotati Chamber will be meeting shortly. So I'll go to that once they reschedule that. So that's what I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Stavitt.
I had a check-in with Supervisor Rabbit this week, and it was really interesting learning about the numerous committees and various things that the supervisors in the county serve on. It's just really a lengthy list. But we talked specifically around the water agencies that he's involved with, also the transportation, and finally, the finishing of widening Highway 101 that only took 2 decades to get done, and also the upcoming Smart Ballot Initiative. And then I also talked with him a little bit about his past experience around education. Our Cotati Roanoke Park School is the lowest funded per student in the county. So I kind of picked his brain a little bit, and he's willing to, look at any initiatives or ideas that we come up with that might help us close that gap.
Thank you. And you mentioning that reminded me, I forgot, for the ribbon cutting for the 101 widening, which was Friday the 3rd, the Mayor Petaluma and I and Supervisor Corsi and another Petaluma council member rode our bikes to the ribbon cutting for the freeway. So that was notable enough that every single speaker mentioned the multi-use pathway and biking as well, even though they were really there to talk about another freeway lane. So I thought it was a success. All right. With that, we'll move on to public comment on non-action agenda items. So if there any public comment, there's nobody in the room, so we'll go to Zoom.
Zoom attendees, if you have a public comment, please use the raise hand icon. Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right. tonight. Was there any information received after the agenda was posted?
Yes, there was. There was the presentation given by Chief Veliquit, as well as updates to one of the attachments for the ordinance provided by City Manager Obid. All of those are available here in the chamber as well as on the HTML agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we adjourn, I'd like us to hold a moment of silence in recognition of our colleague on the Novato City Council, Mark Milberg, who was in Long Beach with us for the conference last week, who died yesterday. Thank you. And with that, we're adjourned at 8:06.